Hi, how are you? Is something I say to almost everyone I start a conversation with. Why? I'm not really sure. It has become so natural to me that I say it without even second thought. We typically don't think about the things that come naturally to us, which is why I, along with most of my classmates, probably struggled with finding an everyday expression from one of our discourse communities to write about. This is also where I believe the so what and who cares questions begin to be answered. First of all, you should care to learn about how different people are parts of different communities to better understand your own discourse communities. But also, we all had to come up with and think of something to write about. So wouldn't it be interesting to see what everyone was able to come up with? So after some less intense thought, I naturally just thought of something I always say within my discourse community, because I believe it holds moral values and provides engagement into conversations I wish to be a part of. Hi, how are you? Is a polite and respectful way to enter a conversation, acquired by always hearing my parents say it to people. It simply engages someone in conversation by asking how they are, and is used when you cannot remember someone's name, but still wish to speak to him or her. I first learned the expression, "Hi, how are you?" through my mother and father always saying it to people they run into. While in public with my parents, whenever they saw someone they knew, we would stop for a moment and my mom or dad would say, "Hi, how are you?" And then we would be standing there 10 minutes later talking about the person's son or daughter. My mom always told me how important it is to be polite and to look someone in the eye when they are speaking to you. And my dad has always said, look someone in the eye when you're talking to them. And I remember coming home one day and saying, "Mom, I ran into so-and-so, but couldn't remember their name." My mom responded with, "That's okay. Maybe next time just say, 'Hi, how are you?' So they know you're still interested to talk to them, and it doesn't seem to come across that you might have forgotten their name." Simply, the definition of the expression, "Hi, how are you?" is a phrase said to engage into a conversation with someone who you cannot place a name to. Oftentimes, we find ourselves forgetting names. I believe that by saying, "Hi, how are you?" shows that you care about the person you're talking to, even though you have forgotten their name. Especially since college is precisely just meeting new people and faces, some of which you will never see again. So how does somebody know what names he or she should remember? To answer quite frankly, we don't. That is where the expression holds value and meaning. Although you might have forgotten someone's name, you still might really like the person, but didn't think you would have to remember his or her name at the time. But by opening with, "Hi, how are you?" rather than just saying hi or simply just walking past them, a conversation began with someone you want to get to know better and potentially may want to be friends with. Once the conversation begins from a simple expression of "Hi, how are you?" you can either reintroduce yourself or simply ask for their name again, because at this point, it's not as rude. Because of the fact we are in college meeting a ton of new people almost every day, chances are they probably forgot your name too. Interacting with many different kinds of people has shown me that by simply asking someone how they are, it can turn their whole mood around. On many occasions while entering Market Square in the Blue, I ask whoever happens to be swiping cards how they are. Specifically, I say, "Hi, how are you?" Or if they ask me how I am, I ask back in return. In one instance, not remembering who was working, and after responding, "I'm well, how are you?" I specifically remember seeing her face light up and beam with happiness that someone cared how she was doing. After that, the expression of emotion was followed by an, "I'm fine, thanks for asking." Not only did this one expression make someone else feel more important, but it also returned the satisfaction to me, as well as making someone blissful for a moment of her day. This expression doesn't have to be used that intensely. It can simply be used when passing by someone on campus when you are in a rush. At least 4 times a day, I pass by someone that looks familiar from one of my classes. While I pass them by, I'm usually on my way to another class or heading over to the library. So I simply give a wave and say, "Hi, how are you?" which is sometimes followed by a, "Good, how are you?" and then go about my business. I mostly do this so it doesn't look like I'm ignoring someone I recognize, if I happen to make eye contact with them. Now, as I have already expressed the positive meaning behind simply asking someone how their day is going, and touched on the various uses of the expression, let me more specifically address the naysayers of the room. Sure, don't get me wrong. It's better to remember someone's name because it makes the conversation more personal. But just because you know someone's name doesn't mean you still can't ask him or her how they are. Even if you don't really care how they are, you can still act like it and potentially make someone's day. I understand that this expression doesn't need to be used all the time, like for those friends you are close with and communicate differently with, within a different discourse community, but it sure comes in handy when you wish to be polite and a staff member happened to forget to put on their name tag that day. When you feel so connected with someone, you enter a new discourse community and regenerate such an expression of "Hi, how are you?" to something along the lines of "Sup" or "How's it going?" or by even addressing a certain issue or accomplishment they have recently undergone or achieved. Again, I'm not saying it's a perfect expression to be used all the time when you encounter someone, but rather I'm saying it can fill an awkward silence, not make you come off as rude, and potentially make someone's day, even if you don't care. This expression can be used not only when continuously meeting new people, but while running into old friends or adults that you recognize but cannot place a name to, while also still wanting to be cordial. This expression of me doesn't fall into one discourse community, but rather many different discourse communities, while showing a simple sign of respect to whomever you may need to. This expression, "Hi, how are you?" is interchangeable within discourse communities and can be applied to almost any situation.